What's a guy gotta do to get a damn clean plate around here? The bark came from behind the line in store number 16, a tightly packed, high-volume kitchen tucked into a shopping plaza just outside Indianapolis. Shane Maddox, CEO and owner of the 20-location fast casual restaurant chain, froze mid-chop. He wasn't used to being yelled at by a head cook, but today no one knew who he was. Just 2 weeks ago, Shane had been sitting in his downtown Chicago office reading a stack of incident reports from different stores. Most were minor late shipments, scheduling issues, but Store 16's customer reviews had started to nosedive. Cold food, long waits, staff attitude. Nothing that screamed catastrophe, but enough to make him uneasy. That store had always performed well. He'd bought the company 5 years ago from an older couple who'd run it more like a family diner chain than a business. He kept the name, expanded it carefully, and made sure each store had room to breathe. He rarely visited them in person, especially the further ones. Store 16 was one he had never stepped foot in, so he went undercover. Disguised with a buzz cut, thick beard, and fake tattoo sleeve, he applied as a kitchen trainee under the name Illy. Corporate had recently updated its onboarding software, so local staff never saw his real name. He told them he'd just moved from Ohio and needed work. No one questioned it. Now, 3 days into his training, Shane was sweating over a cutting board while chaos unfolded around him. He'd already learned 2 things. The kitchen was severely understaffed, and the staff that remained were burning out fast. "How long on that burger, Illy?" barked Marcus, the head cook, as he flipped bacon onto a grill that hissed angrily back. Shane snapped out of it. "Almost done slicing the tomatoes," he said, voice steady. Marcus grunted, wiping sweat from his brow with his forearm. He looked like he hadn't taken a real break in weeks. Probably hadn't. Orders came in faster than they could go out. Shane had helped prep, clean, stock, and even plate when needed. He wasn't great at any of it, but he kept up. The team barely had time to notice him. Except for one person, Vanessa, the dishwasher. She was maybe 19, quiet, always moving. She never stopped scrubbing, rinsing, drying. She didn't speak unless spoken to, but she nodded when people gave her instructions. Shane noticed she always stayed late and often skipped the short breaks others took. It was during the Friday dinner rush when everything cracked. "We're backed up again," Marcus shouted, slamming a ticket against the counter. "I've got fries dying in the window because I'm still waiting on plates." "Where the hell are they?" He turned, eyes locking on Vanessa near the sink. "You're slowing down the line," he snapped. "We can't serve food without plates. This is basic stuff." Vanessa flinched, drying her hands on her apron. "I'm going as fast as I can." "I haven't stopped." "Then go faster," Marcus shot back. "We're not babysitting back here." Shane's hand stopped mid-reach for a lettuce bin. He stared at Marcus, then at Vanessa, who looked down and returned to scrubbing without a word. Something about it hit him wrong. Because it wasn't Vanessa's fault. Shane had seen it all week. The dishwasher was doing double duty. They were short 2 prep cooks and a cleaner. Vanessa had been bussing tables, washing dishes, restocking the drink station, and still trying to keep the sink from overflowing. She hadn't complained once. Marcus knew that, so why blame her? Shane stepped back from the counter, wiping his hands on a towel. "Hey Marcus," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Mind if I talk to you for a second?" Marcus didn't even look at him. "Unless you're plating food, I don't have a second." Shane leaned in slightly. "Seriously, just outside the freezer." Marcus finally turned, clearly annoyed. "Make it fast." They stepped just out of earshot. Shane lowered his voice. "You've been running this kitchen a long time." 4 years, Marcus said. "Why, you've got a good memory then. You know who's pulling weight and who's not." Marcus folded his arms. "I don't have time for riddles, Illy." "Then let's keep it simple," Shane said. "You know Vanessa's been covering for missing staff. You know she hasn't taken a single break in the 3 days I've been here. Blaming her for delays, that's not right." Marcus's jaw twitched. "Look, it's the heat of the rush. I don't have time to babysit. If someone's slowing us down, they get called out." Even when they're not the problem, Marcus didn't answer. Shane let that hang for a moment, then nodded and walked back to the sink. Vanessa, he said quietly, go take 15, she blinked. But there's still, I'll cover it, she hesitated. You don't have to, I want to. She nodded, eyes unsure, then stepped toward the back door. Shane grabbed a pair of gloves and stepped up to the sink. He was already soaked in sweat, what were a few more dish bubbles. He didn't say anything when Marcus walked past him without a word. But the line quieted. Someone noticed. A few of the other cooks gave him strange looks, but no one said anything. Shane kept scrubbing. His hands were raw by the time Vanessa returned, looking confused and a little guilty. She tried to take the gloves back, but Shane held up a soapy hand. Give it 5 more minutes, he said. You've earned it. She didn't smile, but she nodded. And for the first time, Shane saw her shoulders drop a little. He looked across the line. Marcus was watching, still silent. Shane didn't say another word. Not yet, but something had shifted. The Monday after the dinner rush, Shane arrived early. Not to prep, he just needed to sit. The loading dock behind the store had a cracked concrete ledge wide enough to perch on. He watched the early morning light creep down the alley as delivery trucks rolled by. He hadn't slept much. The dishwasher incident wouldn't leave his mind. Not because it was dramatic, but because it wasn't. That kind of thing only became normal when leadership stopped noticing. Footsteps approached. He didn't turn around. You're here early, said a voice. It was Matteo, one of the daytime line cooks. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, always wore a worn denim cap pulled low. He'd trained Shane on knife safety without saying more than necessary. Didn't sleep, Shane said plainly. Matteo nodded like that made perfect sense. Yeah, me neither. Shane finally looked at him. Why's that? Matteo sat beside him, resting his elbows on his knees. My daughter had a fever. Didn't want to leave this morning, but her grandma insisted she'd be okay. You ever get time off when that happens? Shane asked. Matteo gave a dry laugh. Time off, he shook his head. If I don't show, the grill's short. If the grill's short, Marcus gets on edge, then everything backs up. So no. No time off. Shane didn't speak, he just sat with it. Matteo stood after a minute and clapped Shane's shoulder. See you inside, Ali. Shane watched him go, then followed him in. They started prep like usual. No music, just the clatter of knives and the occasional cough from the back hallway. The rhythm was mechanical. Shane moved slower than the others, but he didn't slow them down. He was learning. By 10, the back door burst open and Marcus stormed in holding his phone. Corporate sent some new compliance stuff, he said to no one in particular. Posters, some allergy flowcharts. We gotta put him up by Thursday. He tossed a packet onto the dry storage shelf and walked off. No further explanation. No one asked questions. Later that morning, Shane was assigned to help rebuild the to-go station. The counter had developed a slope, and online orders were sliding off the trays. He was paired with Carrie, the assistant manager. She was in her late 20s, wore her hair in a tight bun, and always had a Bluetooth earpiece in, even when it wasn't connected. You ever use a drill? She asked, holding up a cordless one with a dead battery. A few times, Shane answered. She handed it to him. Good, then you're in charge of screwing these brackets in while I dig in the junk drawer for some actual screws. As they worked, Shane noticed Carrie constantly glancing at the kitchen monitor. You expecting something? He asked. She didn't look at him. Just checking ticket times. Marcus gets twitchy if they creep over 5 minutes. Seems like everyone's walking on eggshells around him. Carrie didn't answer at first. Then she said, He's been here longer than me. He got skipped over for GM when the last one left. I got the role. He didn't take it well. Shane paused, leaning on the drill. You get support from above, Carrie gave a dry exhale. Above, you mean corporate? I get emails, that's about it. He nodded slowly. What about from the franchise owner? She gave him a sideways look. We're not franchised. That landed. Shane didn't respond. She raised an eyebrow. Wait, you thought? I thought we were a franchise, just assumed. Carrie laughed once without warmth. Nope, we're company-owned, which means when we're short-staffed, there's no backup store to pull from. And when we burn out, no one notices. A server poked her head into the hallway. Carrie, 2 online orders just got returned. Customer said the fries were cold again. Carrie sighed and stood. Thanks, I'll comp him. She turned to Shane. You finish this. I gotta go be the apology machine. Shane nodded and got back to work. By the lunch rush, the dining room filled fast. Shane was back on prep, but he kept watching the pickup counter. Customers stood waiting longer than usual. One man in a faded work uniform checked his phone 3 times while staring at the stale heat lamp above his sandwich. The printer spat tickets like it was angry. Shane moved faster, slicing onions with a rhythm that kept his hand steady. Vanessa was back at the sink, sleeves wet past her elbows. Her face was blank, but her foot tapped constantly under the basin. At one point, a young runner named Leo tripped while carrying a tray out. Food scattered, and the customer, a woman in scrubs, let out a sharp breath as her salad hit the floor. Marcus didn't even look up. "Remake it," he called out. Leo scrambled to apologize. Shane walked around the island to help him pick up pieces of lettuce and ice. "You okay?" Shane asked. Leo nodded quickly. "Yeah, just slipped. I'll remake it." As they tossed the mess, Shane heard Marcus mutter to Mateo, "Kid's too soft. Shouldn't be on the floor." Mateo didn't respond. Shane glanced up. Carrie was watching, arms crossed. She said nothing. At 3, the line slowed. Vanessa disappeared for a moment. Shane found her in the back hallway, sitting on a crate. Her eyes were closed and her hands trembled in her lap. He crouched next to her. "I can finish the afternoon dishes," he said gently. "I'm fine," she replied, forcing the words. "You don't look fine," I said. "I'm fine." Her voice had an edge now, not anger, just desperation. Shane didn't push. He stood and returned to the sink. There wasn't much left to clean, just some prep bowls and the fryer baskets. He moved slowly, letting her take the time she needed. At shift change, Carrie gathered the team for announcements. She stood near the back hallway, clipboard in hand. "Okay," she said. "We're losing 2 of our closers this week. One's taking another job, the other's moving. We've got open shifts starting Friday." No one responded. She looked around. "Anyone willing to pick up extra hours?" Silence. Then Vanessa raised her hand. "I can take Friday." Carrie glanced at her. "Thanks. Anyone else?" Mateo raised a tired hand. "Saturday." Carrie scribbled notes. "All right, I'll post the new schedule tonight." As the staff dispersed, Marcus pulled Carrie aside. Shane pretended to wipe down the prep table nearby. "We can't keep relying on Vanessa," Marcus said, voice low. "She's going to burn out." Carrie crossed her arms. "You want to start washing dishes? Hire someone. We've posted the listing for 3 weeks. Then raise the pay." Carrie looked at him. "You think I set pay rates?" He looked away. Shane stepped forward. "Actually," he said calmly, "who does set the pay rates?" Carrie turned. "Corporate, why?" Marcus narrowed his eyes. Shane smiled faintly. "Just curious." That night he stayed behind after close, told Carrie he'd mop. She didn't argue. When the others were gone, he pulled out his phone and opened the schedule system. He still had admin access. The staffing shortages weren't new, they went back nearly 4 months. Turnover was highest at this location. Half the staff had been working double shifts for weeks. He checked the pay ledger. Dish staff were making just above minimum wage. The same rate as 2 years ago, no bonuses, no shift differentials. No incentives. He closed the screen and stared at the prep table. This wasn't a broken store, it was an ignored one, and he was done watching. The next morning, Shane didn't put on the illy named tag. He walked through the front doors of store 16 in pressed jeans and a navy button-down, clean, shaven, and upright, no longer pretending to be someone else. Carrie was behind the counter, reviewing prep checklists on a clipboard. She glanced up, did a double take, then stood straighter. "Can I help you?" she asked. Shane met her eyes. "You can gather the staff. I'm Shane Maddox." For a second, no one moved, then Carrie's mouth parted slightly. She blinked twice, looked toward the kitchen, then back at him. "You're the owner?" "Yeah." She set the clipboard down slowly. "I'm going to get Marcus." "Get everyone," Shane said. "I need 10 minutes, just 10. Carrie nodded once, then moved briskly toward the back. A few employees had already turned from their prep stations and were peering out. Mateo leaned against the cooler, arms crossed, face unreadable. Vanessa stood near the sink, her hands still damp. She didn't move, just stared. Within 5 minutes, the kitchen was quiet. No sizzling, no chopping, no timed beeps from the fryers. Just a half circle of tired staff gathering in front of the line, watching the man they'd worked beside for a week stand up straighter than they'd ever seen him. Shane looked at each of them. "I came here undercover because I stopped trusting reports," he began. "I wanted to see for myself what was going wrong. I thought I'd find inefficiencies or maybe a bad system. What I found was something worse." He let that sit. "I found people holding this place together with grit and silence. I found burnout that's gone ignored. I found a staff that doesn't complain because they've been conditioned not to. And I found leadership that's been left alone too long without accountability." Marcus shifted his weight. His arms stayed folded. Shane turned toward him. "Marcus, I watched you run this kitchen with discipline but also with blinders. You've been short-staffed for months, and instead of advocating for your team, you've demanded more from the same exhausted people. You've let frustration justify disrespect." Marcus opened his mouth. "I was doing the best I could with what I had." "No," Shane said. "You were doing what was easiest for you. You let people work double shifts without relief. You berated a dishwasher who's been covering 3 roles because you never escalated the shortage. You let standards drop because it was simpler than fixing them." The staff was silent. No one defended Marcus, not even Carrie. "I'm not here to lecture," Shane continued, "but leadership isn't about who's been here the longest, it's about who makes people better. And that's not what I saw from you." Marcus's face flushed. "So what? You're cutting me loose?" "Yes," Shane said plainly. "Effective immediately." Marcus's jaw shifted. He looked around the room, no one met his eyes, then walked out without another word. Shane turned back to the staff. "I'm not going to pretend this fixes anything overnight. It doesn't replace the shifts you've worked understaffed. It doesn't refund the energy you've spent keeping this place afloat, but it's a start." He looked toward Carrie. "You'll be interim GM. You've kept this place running without the authority to fix things. That ends today. You'll have direct access to me for the next 30 days. You'll get support, real support." Carrie nodded, her expression tight but composed. "Understood." Shane turned to Vanessa. "You should never have been left alone back there," he said. "Starting now, we're hiring 2 new support staff. Dish and cleaning, you'll be training them, and you'll be paid for it. On top of that, your base rate's going up by 25%. She didn't speak. Just stared at him like she wasn't sure if this was real. "I also want you to take the next 2 days off," Shane added. "Full pay, you've earned more than that, but it's a start." Vanessa slowly nodded. The room remained still. Shane looked around. "We're not going to solve it all today. But I'm not leaving this store behind a spreadsheet again. I'll be here for the next week. Not as Ali, as me, watching, listening, and fixing what needs fixing." He stepped back, letting the words settle. Mateo raised a hand slightly. Shane nodded toward him. "You got plans for staffing backups?" Mateo asked. "Because one person quits, we get buried." "Yes," Shane said. "I've already pulled floaters from 3 other stores to rotate through here starting tomorrow. And we're offering weekend bonuses until we stabilize." Mateo gave a small nod, then returned to the prep table without a word. The team dispersed slowly. No applause, no cheers. Just weary employees returning to their stations with a bit less weight on their shoulders. Shane stayed. By noon, he was standing beside Carrie in the office, reviewing hiring leads and budget allocations. She didn't speak much, but when she did, she was sharp and clear. She flagged a few candidates who had declined past offers due to low pay. "Reach out again," Shane said. "We can offer more now. That'll get us in the door," she said, tapping the screen. "But if the culture doesn't change, they won't stay." "It will," Shane said. "Starting with how we lead." She nodded without looking at him. "Good." An hour later, Shane stepped back onto the floor. Vanessa was gone. Carrie had made sure she clocked out. A temp from Store 8 had arrived to cover the sink. Shane introduced himself directly, offered him lunch on the house, then moved to the back to check on Leo. The young runner glanced over as Shane approached. "You staying on?" Shane asked. Leo gave a quick nod. "If that's okay." "I'd like that. You working another job?" "Yeah, nights, freight at a warehouse." "You ever want more hours here?" Leo hesitated. "If it paid more, maybe." Shane nodded. "We'll talk." He returned to the line and watched for a while. The pace was still intense, but the tension had eased. Carrie moved between stations with more authority now, giving clear instruction without raising her voice. Matteo coached a new line cook through burger assembly. The kitchen was still stretched thin, but it was breathing again. Later that evening, Shane sat in the back hallway, typing notes into his phone. Not just about staffing, but about policy gaps, missed escalation protocols, and how easily silence could become standard. He had built this company on the idea of scaling a good thing. But he'd stopped looking close enough to see when good had slipped into barely surviving. Not anymore. He looked up as Carrie stepped around the corner. "I scheduled interviews for Thursday," she said. "3 decent leads." "Good," she paused. "You staying for close?" "No." "I trust you've got it," she nodded, then turned to leave. "Carrie," he added, "you held this together longer than anyone had a right to ask. You shouldn't have had to, but you did." She didn't reply, just gave a single short nod and walked back to the floor. Shane sat in the hallway a moment longer, then stood and grabbed his jacket. Tomorrow he'd be back, not as a spy, as a leader. The following week unfolded with a quiet urgency. Shane returned daily, never in disguise now, never with fanfare. He took calls from a folding chair in the back hallway and kept his laptop on the dry goods shelf. He didn't hover over anyone, but he didn't disappear either. By Wednesday, the temporary floaters from other stores were rotating through consistently. They came with their own habits, but most adjusted quickly under Carrie's direction. Still, no shift was fully staffed and no one was coasting. Every sandwich still needed hands, every dish still needed scrubbing. Mid-morning, Shane found himself at the prep table next to Matteo, slicing through bell peppers. They worked in silence until Matteo spoke. "You planning to send someone permanent from corporate?" "Already did," Shane said, keeping his eyes on the cutting board. "Her name's Dana, ops specialist. She'll rotate through 6 stores, but she'll be anchored here for the next month. She know kitchens?" "She opened 2 of our original locations, ran one for almost a year." Matteo nodded slowly. "That'll help." "Not just help," Shane said. "She'll be here to make things easier for you." "Not the other way around." Matteo said nothing for a while, then, "You should have come sooner." "I know." When Shane stepped into the dining room later that day, the lunch crowd hadn't hit yet. Leo was wiping down tables. He moved slower than usual, eyes heavy with fatigue. "You all right?" Shane asked, keeping his voice low. "Haven't been sleeping much," Leo said. "Warehouse bumped our shift start an hour earlier. Means I'm running on maybe 3 hours when I get here." "You want to stay here full time?" Shane asked. Leo looked genuinely surprised. "I didn't think that was an option." "It is now. We're adding a second runner position. If you want it, it's yours. Full time plus benefits. You'd start next week." Leo blinked a few times. "Yeah." "Yeah, I'd take that. Then it's yours." As Leo turned back to finish the tables, Shane spotted a woman in a navy blouse and black slacks stepping through the front door. She scanned the room briskly, then approached. "Dana?" Shane asked. She extended her hand. "Right on time." They walked through the kitchen together. Carrie was leading a brief huddle by the expo window, laying out adjustments to the closing checklist. Dana observed silently, then asked to see the back storage and the walk-in. An hour later, she pulled Shane aside near the break sink. "No ordering system. No shift briefing protocol. Prep logs are inconsistently filled. Walk-ins organized, but there's no labeling system." Shane nodded. "You think this team can handle the changes?" "They've had to handle worse," Dana said. "They'll adjust if they know it's permanent." "Then make it permanent." By Friday, Vanessa was back. She stepped in just before her shift, tied her apron, and walked straight to the sink, but her movements were different, not slower, firmer. She greeted the new dishwasher in training with a short nod and handed her a pair of gloves. Shane watched from across the kitchen. He didn't interrupt. She worked steadily, teaching the new girl how to stack trays without tipping them, how to run the rinse cycle properly, how to avoid flooding the drain. She spoke little but clearly. The trainee followed without hesitation. Later that afternoon, Carrie caught Shane just outside the walk-in. "Got a second?" "Always." She handed him a short list. "2 new hires confirmed, 1 for weekends only, 1 full-time. Both start next week." "Good." She hesitated. "I've also got a scheduling request. Vanessa wants to stay part-time. Said she can't do full shifts every day." "That's fine," Shane said. "Whatever keeps her here without burning her out." Carrie nodded, then looked at him directly. "You know she's been offered work at 2 other places this week." "I do. She's staying because she believes you're serious." "I am." Carrie held his gaze a moment longer, then turned and headed back to the line around closing. Shane helped wipe down the counter by the pickup station. The new support staff had handled the evening rush well. No breakdowns, no shouting. Just controlled chaos, the kind kitchens were meant to have. When the last customer left, Matteo leaned against the wall near the mop rack. "You sticking around tomorrow?" "Not all day," Shane said. "I've got to visit store 12, but I'll be back Sunday." Matteo nodded. "You should see the difference." "I already do." They didn't say more. As staff filtered out, Shane walked toward the back door. Vanessa was stacking the last of the clean plates. She glanced up as he approached. "How was your first shift back?" he asked. "Felt different," she said. "Good different," she considered it. Then, "Manageable, that's the goal." She dried her hands and grabbed her coat. "I'm not going to pretend everything's great just yet." "You shouldn't," Shane said. "But this place runs better when you're in it, and it's our job to make sure that never costs you more than it should." She nodded once. "See you Sunday." He watched her walk out into the night, then turned back toward the kitchen. Later that weekend, Dana implemented the first set of standard operating procedures, nothing overwhelming. Just clear opening checklists, prep logs with timestamps, a rotating checklist for equipment maintenance. Carrie posted them in the dry storage, laminated and visible. The team didn't resist. Not because they were used to change, but because the changes actually made sense. The next week, Shane met with the regional managers. He didn't talk about numbers. He talked about store 16. About what happens when leadership forgets to look closely, about how silence can hide rot. And how fixing it means more than plugging holes, it means rebuilding trust one decision at a time. He didn't spin it. He didn't dress it up. He told them exactly what he'd seen and what he'd let happen by staying distant. And then he told them why it would never happen again. Back at store 16, things weren't perfect. The fryer still sputtered when overfilled. The HVAC was overdue for a service check. And the weekend rush still pushed everyone to their limits. But people spoke up now. Carrie had a line of communication directly to Shane and Dana. Vanessa trained 2 new hires and took every Wednesday off. Leo transitioned to full-time and started shadowing Carrie on inventory. Matteo suggested a new layout for the prep station that Dana approved within minutes. No one was coasting, but they weren't drowning anymore either. One night just before close, Shane stood outside the back door watching the sky darken. Carrie joined him, sipping from a reusable water bottle. "You think they'll believe it sticks?" she asked. "They'll believe it when it does," she nodded. "Then we better make sure it does." They stood in the quiet alley for a few minutes longer, then went back inside, and the kitchen kept moving.